Before we get started with the Sales Integrity Podcast, if you haven't already signed up for our free video email course titled 7 Steps to Master the Game of Complex Technical Selling, then you'll want to do so right away. If you're listening on your phone, then simply text the word SI course to the number 44222 or visit mastercomplexsales.com. Again, text the word SI as in sales integrity, so SI course, which is all one word with no spacing at all, to the number 44222 or visit mastercomplexsales.com. Now let's get started with the podcast. Hello, sales achievers. Welcome to the Sales Integrity Podcast. I'm Sean Pickett, founder and CEO of Sales Integrity, a sales coaching services provider, and also the founder of my coach site, a coaching enablement software provider. This podcast is all about helping sales professionals, leaders, and organizations with a complex technical B2B sale to increase sales and earn more money, period. Today's theme, Finisher Friday. Since most salespeople like to be known as closers, on Fridays we will focus on one tip to finish the week strong to help improve your follow-up skills or improve your closing skills. So get ready to close this week out in strong fashion with today's Finisher Friday topic. And with that, let's get today's episode rocking and rolling. All right, sales achievers, let's get right to it today. On this past Wisdom Wednesday episode of the Sales Integrity Podcast, I interviewed Bob Minshall, the GM COO of my coach site, and one of Bob's tips to B2B tech sales professionals to help them improve their closing ratio was to use the trial close technique. So given that this is Finisher Friday, where we focus on one tip to either finish the week strong, improve your follow-up skills, or improve your closing skills, I thought, what better topic for this week's Finisher Friday than to focus on the trusty old trial close technique. Now, a trial close is not a normal closing technique per se. Rather, it is a technique to help you determine whether or not the person is ready to close, or at least closer to making a decision. As a sales professional who most likely has been through your fair share of training, you were probably taught influence and persuasion techniques, such as getting the other person to make smaller commitments along the way to get them used to saying yes to you. The reason for this is simple. It is because of the psychology behind it. Simply put, when it becomes time to reach a final conclusion to sign a contract and officially close the deal, it would be just a natural next step for them to say yes again. After all, they're already used to it, right? So in essence, this is what the trial close is really all about. By simply putting the idea of moving forward towards closure and decision-making in the prospect's mind, you will receive less resistance from them at the end of the sales cycle. However, I do want to make one point of clarification as it relates to the trial close. It's not just about getting them to literally say yes along the way. It's mostly about painting a picture of the future with both of you in it after you have solved their problem, handled their challenge, addressed their issue, helped them achieve their goal, or all of the above. Simply put, it's about helping them envision a better future with your help. Also, as it relates to the sales cycle, the response you receive each time you use the trial close along the way is very telling in terms of where they're at in their evaluation process at that time in terms of making a final decision. And the key is at that time. That's the key phrase there. It's a series of steps that you're moving throughout the sales process. You want to find out where are they at mentally at that time. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that this isn't something you are doing to someone. This isn't a deceptive technique that is brainwashing or manipulating the other person unless that is your intention. You see, there's no such thing as a bad or manipulative technique. There's only bad people with bad intentions that use effective influence and persuasion techniques in a harmful way. An example would be a hypnotherapist that hypnotizes you It makes you do crazy things in public for their own personal amusement versus actually helping you learn more about your issues to solve your problems. So rest assured, if you feel you are a good person who has the prospective customer's best interest in mind, and if you have product conviction and truly believe that your solution is the absolute best solution to address your prospect's needs, then you could feel confident that using the trial close technique within your selling game is the right thing to do. After all, your role as a sales professional is to help guide the senior executive decision maker and their buying team of influencers and evaluators through the evaluation process and sales cycle at the right pace to help them make a decision that will ultimately benefit their business. You'd be doing them a disservice if you were passive and didn't try to guide them through the process as quickly as possible, yet at a reasonable pace. After all, who doesn't want to solve their problems or achieve their goals faster, right? So how do I apply the trial close technique, you might ask? As you might imagine by now, if you've listened to my previous podcast episodes, or if you personally know me, I'm going to tell you it all starts with preparation. First, you need to think through your sales cycle. How many steps or stages are in your sales cycle? What are those stages? Then you need to determine what questions you might ask at each stage that you would need answered positively by your prospect to move the process forward to the next stage. Here are some quick examples of questions that I use at various stages in the sales cycle. First one is, have you evaluated other options yet, such as doing this internally or working with other solution providers similar to my firm? Now, I asked this right up front. This is early on when I first connect with a prospective customer, and usually this will tell me where they're at in the process. Did they come to me or did I go to them? That's one thing I got to keep in mind. But no matter what, I'll ask this question because my very best customers have tried this on their own first, as most companies and executives would do. Let's try it internally. Then they went outside and tried another similar firm, another coaching provider, another consulting provider, and it didn't work as well. And if they came to me, that's very telling. That means they've already gone through this process. They've exhausted all other options, and it'll probably be a shorter sales cycle. If I came to them and they still went through those things, then that tells me they'll probably be skeptical, and it might be kind of a midterm type sales cycle, not as long but not a short one from that perspective. So just keep that in mind. And it could be much longer if they haven't done either of these two things yet. So for me, and for any B2B tech sales professional on the phone or on the podcast here, that's going to tell you, kind of where they're at in that process early on and how long you might be in for it in terms of the sales cycle. The second question, is the challenge that I just presented similar to a challenge you are currently facing? So again, is the challenge that I just presented similar to a challenge you are currently facing? Again, this is early on in the sales cycle. It could be in discussion 1, it could be in discussion 2 or 3, but pretty early on, you're going to share with them that I work with executives and companies similar to yours. We help them, address this challenge, this issue, this goal. And you want to make sure that, is this something that you're facing as well? And if so, you're well positioned to help them. So that just tells me, were they thinking about it? Is it latent pain where they're not really aware of it? Or was it a stated pain that they are aware of and now they're looking for you to help them address that pain? So that's where I ask that question, just to kind of understand where they're at. And again, if the answer is yes, that's very similar to what I'm facing. Okay, now here we are getting more yeses, and they're becoming more agreeable, and they're starting to connect with me a little bit better, and we're building a trusted relationship because they're going to feel, hey, this is what they do. They work with executives like me. They work with companies like me. They get it. They understand what my challenge is. So that's all part of the trial close as well, this early in the sales cycle. Third question, is the solution I just presented relevant to what you envisioned implementing? So again, is the solution I just presented relevant to what you envisioned implementing? This isn't going to be too early in the sales cycle. This will probably be after 2-3 meetings. Now you're demoing your product. If you have a software product or a solution, you're showing them visually. Maybe you had a PowerPoint presentation or one pager you walked them through. But at this point, whether they explored other options, whether they're leaning towards doing it internally, or whether there's competition in the mix and what you're facing there based on the first question. Second question tells you whether they're experiencing the challenge, that you are able to help them with, and now you're presenting the solution. So you're somewhere midway through there, a little bit past the first part, but not quite in the middle of the sales cycle. And you want to figure out, hey, did I meet the mark this early on? Not that they're going to move forward with you right away, but again, you're trying to understand, are they leaning towards making a decision? Are they envisioning the future and starting to move forward and thinking about making a decision here? So this one's really telling this question because, are you far off? Do you have some work to do to customize your solution and eventually get to a proposal that meets the mark? So that's where I like this question within, leveraging the trial close technique with this question. The fourth question, is there anyone else in your organization that will participate in the evaluation process and help you make a decision? Again, is there anyone else in your organization that will participate in the evaluation process and help you make a decision? This is more of trying to figure out the decision-making process, the timeline that goes along with that. You don't want any surprises. Typically in a B2B tech sales cycle, these are 3 months to 1 year, 3 to 12 month sales cycles. They can be longer. There's multiple evaluators, influencers, and people on the buying team. So you just want to figure out, who else will be part of it and start to understand the moving parts that are associated to the decision-making process that goes along with it. If you're selling to SMB, small to mid-sized businesses, maybe the executive is the decision maker, the evaluator, and everything bundled into one. But it's good to understand where you stand there. And usually this could be a contentious one if you're asking it, too early, or if they're not willing to share. That means I don't trust you just yet. You haven't earned that right for me to share with you how we make decisions here, especially as it relates to this particular opportunity or initiative. So again, that'll tell you where you stand, in the overall process, which is really what a trial close technique is all about. And then I'm going to just share one more, the fifth one, and this is my personal favorite because it could be used at any stage in the sales cycle, is the question of, does that make sense? And I use this all the time. I'll make a point, I'll pause, I'll read the room. If it's a call, you don't know that, but whether it's a call, a video chat, a conference call, a webinar, doesn't matter what, but if you use this phrase, this question, does that make sense? You're going to really quickly understand whether your audience is following along or not. And so I love this one because it could be used it's easy to understand, easy to remember. It could be used at any stage and it will tell you exactly where you stand at that point. Because if it doesn't make sense, they're going to say, not really. I mean, that's a very quick question that they can't skirt around, and you'll see it, you'll feel it, depending on the setting, and that'll help you understand, am I meeting the mark or not, and let me adjust along the way. And you can keep asking that along the way. Does that make sense? You present something, does that make sense? Within a demo, within a proposal, stop after each section or after each slide or after each segment you go through in the demo, and just stop and say, okay, let me pause real quick. Does that make sense? Are there any questions here? A couple more derivatives off of the does that make sense question would be, do you need me to elaborate more? That's another one. Or do you need me to illustrate further? So those three kind of go hand in hand. Does that make sense? Do you need me to elaborate more? Do you need me to illustrate further? So one final trial close approach as we start to wrap this up to leverage is to ask if-then questions to determine their readiness to move forward. I think this approach is best suited for later in the sales cycle, personally, when you feel you have established a trusting relationship with the prospective customer and are picking up on indicators or buying signal cues that they are likely to move forward. Fair warning, though, use this specific technique too early in the process, then it sounds contrived and manipulative due to the lack of trust established just yet in the relationship. So just keep that in mind, that this is the ultimate trial close technique, questioning technique of if then. And if you do that early, a lot of people say, if I'm able to do this, then would you be willing to move forward? And if I don't know you yet and I'm evaluating something, it's too early. That's just going to feel so salesy. And it's just not something that I recommend doing too early. So the real key here in what I said was picking up on indicators and buying signal cues. So let me give you an example of that. A positive example of this would be after you've established a trusted relationship, you're closer to the end of the sales cycle, and I'm going to just give you kind of a quick example here. This is what I would say. You stated you would need a solution in place by September 30th so you could showcase it at your product launch kickoff event in October. Given that, if I'm able to ensure we could assemble the project team and kick the project off by April 1st, then have the final solution completed and ready for your product launch in October, then would you be prepared to move forward with signing contracts by March 15th so we can meet your timeline? So again, I'm kind of going through, you could see in that example, obviously in that dialogue talk track example, there assumes there's a relationship there. I picked up on cues from this prospect that they stated earlier, the critical milestone of October for a product launch. This is also known as a trigger event, but that's a topic for another podcast episode. In the meantime, that'll do it for today's episode. I hope this helped shed some light on an old technique that you might have dust off and put to use if you forgot about it. If you do use it, maybe I provided a refresher or some new ideas on how to best leverage the trial close technique. Now let's conclude today's episode with some quick reminders. First, we recently launched 2 new B2B tech sales professional groups, one on LinkedIn and one on Facebook. Just search for B2B tech sales professionals on either LinkedIn or Facebook, or both if you want to join both groups and join the conversation with your peers there. Second, if you haven't already subscribed to our free 7-day video email course titled 7 Steps to Master the Game of Complex Technical Selling, then I seriously question your commitment to your sales career. Nah, just kidding. But seriously, you should subscribe. You can do so by visiting mastercomplexsales.com or by texting the word SI course to the number 44222. Again, visit mastercomplexsales.com or text the word SI course, all one word with no spacing. If you put a space between SI and course, you're going to get an error message back. So make sure it's SI as in sales integrity, SI course, all one word, to the number 44222. After subscribing, we will send you your first lesson via email right away, and then one a day for the next 7 days. Third, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or SoundCloud. Just search for the Sales Integrity Podcast with Sean Pickett, and it should pop up and allow you to subscribe on one of those 2 channels. After you subscribe, please provide a quick 5-star rating and a 1 to 2 sentence review to help others find the show. We're going to be published on Stitcher Radio, Google Play, and eventually iHeartRadio and other channels. However, we're a brand new podcast as of this week. This is our first week, so we're not on those channels just yet. But bear with us. We're going to get there soon, and we'll let you know when we do. And then finally, please share the podcast with your colleagues and friends who would find it relevant. You could do so by going to salesintegrity.com and click the Sales Integrity Podcast menu link at the top of the page. All of the podcasts are there, and it provides you a way to click a button and share any episode via email, or you can share it on the various social media sites if you're so inclined. I greatly appreciate you spreading the word about the show on social media to help grow it. And that will do it for today's episode. Now go out there in the sales world today, help your prospects and customers buy what they want, what they need, and what benefits them. And most importantly, go out there and make it a great day.